I say peace and black power. Black power. Black power. I actually want to say a few things regarding South Africa as a black state, and also its capacity to govern itself. Now, before I talk about the South African military, which is the purpose for this video, I'm a little disappointed. In fact, I'm extremely disappointed in the African National Congress. Now, we usually think that the African National Congress fought for liberation and they monopolized that kind of the documentation of history, for which is incorrect. The African National Congress never fought for liberation. The Pan-African Congress never fought for liberation, or any other organization that claimed whatsoever. Black people in South Africa, or rather occupied Azania, fought for liberation. Just in case these fellas are misusing the resources we have, the little resources. I understand that systematically the system of apartheid have been privatized. It's a system wholeheartedly. And then the government today is not necessarily the government. It's just administration. Now, one of the reasons why I'm so disappointed in the South African military is because, listen to this. South Africa is the 25th largest country in the planet. 5 times the size of UK, but we are enslaved by the UK. And it's 2 times the size of France. And France too is a superpower. The UK today, when you mention Britain or the UK, and when I say UK, I'm not talking about England alone, I'm talking about the entire United Kingdom. We are their slaves, but we are the biggest country. How is that possible? Look at Russia, for instance. It's the first, it's number 1 in terms of its the milestone. I think it's 9,000 something square miles, 9 million or 9,000, whatever. Now they are the biggest. They've got the biggest military. They're a superpower, followed by China. China's a superpower, and number 3 is the United States of America. They are also big. Now in South Africa, our personnel, we have got 89,000 personnel in 2019. I'm talking about the soldiers we have against a population which they usually say is 54 million, but it's not. It's probably maybe 70 or 80 or even 100, including people who are coming in, foreigners and so forth. Because you can't tell me that we're 54 million, whereas every day, if you go to any hospital today, a baby is born. In fact, babies are born. Now, how can 89,000 people protect such kind of a population? How are we going to defend ourselves against all of this enslavement? We keep crying white supremacy, and we keep crying white monopoly capital. We keep crying that 10% of the population control 90% of the population, control the mineral resources, control the land of 90% of the population, and your government is afraid to confront because you'll never get no land from white people because it has been voted so in parliament. They will never give it to you. They'll give you civil war. Now I have heard, I'm not sure how correct and accurate this is, that there are 400,000 registered private security companies. And you can agree with me that 95% of security companies in this country are white owned. So if you're going to talk, for instance, within political spaces about the revolution, at that time you don't even own a gun. And you're going to talk about the defeat of white supremacy. The defeat of white supremacy will never happen just because you said land expropriation without compensation, amending section to the white people don't even give a damn about that. They will fight tooth and nail. That's why your politicians are afraid of them. When we talk about the strength of a country, we're not talking about the economy. For instance, the United States of America, they don't have really much good economy, but their dollar is strong because you can't mess around with their dollar. In South Africa, you have got banks which are used. Standard Bank confessed recently that they have been manipulating the rand. Look, the reason why it was difficult for other countries to intervene during apartheid is because in the 1970s, South African population entirely was 22 million. Now, P.W. Botha, when he talked about the total onslaught, they had 85,000 active military personnel, 10,000 in Bantustans, or where black people are, to actually contain them. And they had 500,000 people in training. That's why they said apartheid was never going to be defeated. They were correct. The only way any other country could intervene at that time was not through military invasion, was through sanctions. You had to sanction them in order to have a conversation with them. Right now, we don't have that capacity. In fact, any country can invade us. If you were to compare our military personnel to the UK, you'll be shocked. Not only the personnel, the military equipment that we have, it's actually inherited from apartheid. Today, the black government is only focusing on themselves. They're focusing on themselves. Don't really care about black people. Parliament don't really care about people. That's why I say if there should be a process of repossession, it should never be expropriation to the state, because the state have already sold out. It should be given to the community. There must be community land management councils. The people must be able to govern their land, teach the people land literature. You can't talk about land repossession and then the schooling system says nothing about the education, or rather the re-education of black babies to understand the power of land. And how do you know, well, what land is good for what? Look at the floods that are happening. That was a result of the Group Areas Act by apartheid government, because they will just relegate you to places which were not productive. Now you end up having to build houses in places which are not physical, geologically and otherwise. Right now, when we talk about building as black people, we don't even do assessment or nothing. We just build. You get a little land, you build. No assessment whatsoever. We have no knowledge of that because we don't learn about it. So say peace and black power.